I woke up this morning to a billion questions on my latest Land Cruiser video, so I'm going to be making a dedicated video today to answer those questions. I apologize in advance for the ugly background. I can't film in the driveway today because it's raining and my camera is not waterproof. One of the major comments was on the fuel range, only getting about 200 miles on a tank. Part of this is because of the smaller fuel tank in the 250. It only has a 17.9 gallon fuel tank. And then the other part of it is not being able to get anywhere near the EPA rated fuel economy. And just for reference, I consistently get over 300 miles on a tank with my 200 series. My wife consistently gets mid 300s on a tank with her Sequoia. Another big comment is that the bar for new Toyotas is set pretty low if my only expectation is that the car will start up every single time. And I do agree with that statement to an extent, but also understand that I've owned a bunch of cars over the last few years from a bunch of different manufacturers. I had a Land Rover Defender, for example, Jeep Wrangler, Ram TRX, I've had Ford Raptors, I had a Chevy Camaro, Toyota Supra, etc. And every single car that I've owned from Toyota has had no major issues. It's always started up, whereas the cars from the other brands have broken down, and all of them have broken down in sub 10,000 miles. And so I understand that it's still a statement saying that the bar is set pretty low, but Toyota's still doing better than the other manufacturers for the most part, it seems like. The lighting in here is going to be horrible, but another question was about the tire size with the 250 Land Cruiser. These are Pizza Cutter 33s, 255 by 80 by 17. I picked out this tire because it's a lighter weight option, not being as wide as some other tires. Why don't I go and buy a 5th generation 4Runner? I owned a 2022 4Runner TD Pro. Absolutely love the vehicle, but there are some downsides. Articulation with that generation is not great unless you get a KDSS model. Those are very hard to find. And then the other thing that I didn't like about the 5th gen is just the power. It has horrible passing power on the highway, and it's really bad when you go up canyons. And so it just isn't the right fit. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I got the 200 series rather than going for 5th gen 4Runner. The next question is, why do I own so many vehicles? So I'll explain the purpose behind every single vehicle. The Sequoia is our family car. It's my wife's daily driver. The 200 series is my daily driver slash our family off-road car. That's why it has stuff like rock rails, and I have traction boards up top and move the spare tire up top. And that's because I plan on adding a fuel tank underneath for extra range. I bought the 250 series Land Cruiser to do a long-term test and make YouTube videos on, so it's just a content car. And the Grenadier is the same exact situation. Why all SUVs? Well, biggest possible tax write-off, and then also the largest possible audience size on YouTube. Americans love trucks and SUVs, and they also love off-roading, and so I have the largest amount of content that I can make on these vehicles. Why don't I consider a Bronco as one of the options? I've already owned 2 of the new Broncos. I had a first edition and a Bronco Raptor. Disappointed with the build quality of both of the vehicles and the general material use. Ford needs to really improve that on their vehicles. It's just horrible. And then the reliability. My Bronco Raptor had major electrical issues at only about 3,000 miles. I didn't feel comfortable taking it off-road because I didn't want to get stranded. And on top of that, I was super disappointed with the off-roading manners of the Bronco Raptor. It had tons of ground clearance and it had pretty good articulation for IFS, but it was extremely unstable. Like, you get the Bronco Raptor because you think you're gonna be able to do Raptor stuff, and it is horrible at Raptor stuff. And so I just think that, kind of like the 250 Land Cruiser, the Bronco feels like a half-baked product where Ford needs to make some major improvements to it. And they've made some, but there's definitely more room to go. A bunch of 250 owners have commented that they got over 20 miles per gallon on average with their 250s. I've seen that on my 250 every so often, but it has to be over 70 degrees. It has to be a nice sunny day with no wind, and I can't go up too steep of an incline or the fuel economy again just goes to crap. So it's like you need perfect conditions to be able to get over 20 miles per gallon, and Utah never has perfect conditions. Surprisingly, a lot of people asking me why I'm not considering the Nissan Armada Pro 4X, considering the size, the engine, and the off-road capability that it offers. My big beef with the Nissan Armada Pro 4X is just the ride comfort. It has air suspension. I hate air suspension. Again, I owned a Land Rover Defender. When you're at the top of the bags, horrible ride quality, and even lower down in the suspension, it isn't comfortable off-road. And so I'm just not a fan of the suspension system when it comes to off-roading because of potential reliability issues and then also comfort. The next question is asking me how much my car payments are on all of these cars. I don't have a payment on any of the cars. They're all paid off. I don't do auto loans, so I just have my yearly insurance bill and then maintenance costs on all of the cars. What about the new Toyota 4Runner as an option? And although it has slightly better underpinnings compared to the 250 Land Cruiser, there's no full-time four-wheel drive system for an off-road version of the new 4Runner, and that completely takes it out of the running for me. As I'm reading through more and more of these comments, I'm seeing that there's a theme of people either telling me to buy a certain vehicle or consider a vehicle more seriously. The next one is the Lexus GX 550. Again, doesn't have a front locking differential. I really like front lockers for the control that they provide off-road. Again, I do a ton of off-roading. And then again, the cost with the GX 550, after I add all of the modifications into the GX 550, I would be at a similar price point to a Wrangler 392, which has a V8 and a solid front axle. So I'm not completely throwing it off of the table, but it does kind of make me lean more towards the Jeep. And there is a similar logic with the Lexus LX. Although it does provide a front locking differential, it is so expensive, just the MSRP price plus the modifications, that it's a really tough pill for me to swallow going that route. Although I do think that it could potentially be the perfect vehicle offered with the comfort it provides and the triple lock setup. Looks like that's a bulk of the questions answered. So if you have more, comment those down below and I'll try to get back to as many of you as I possibly can. And if you want to see what I do moving forward, then I recommend you subscribe. I'm most likely going to make some sort of decision sometime this week. Now, I won't be taking action on that decision for probably several weeks. Again, I want to get my old house situation figured out before I make any sort of big financial decisions associated with vehicles. But yeah, it's going to come sooner rather than later. See ya.